Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. We are going to talk about longevity in your artistic career. How to stay in your artistic career through your 80s, through your 90s, through your literal deathbed, okay? Why we're talking about this today is because something I've noticed, like when we talk about the starving artist trope, there are not a lot of older artists who are living that starving artist lifestyle. And there is a reason for that. So being a starving artist is a young person's game, okay? When you have like the energy and the grit of like being in your youth, like being in your 40s and below, I want to say, you're able to live a starving artist life and still like kind of be in denial of like, yeah, I could live like this forever, right? Or like, this is just what artists do. At some point, you will burn out. You enter your 50s, absolutely no way that you can sustain the kind of starving artist lifestyle that you lived when you were younger, okay? Your life, your body, your like desires will start to require more of you. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about every fantastic artist, creative, thriving business owner who you look up to, who is in their like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, as old as you can go. I want you to think about those people. Not a single one of them does not have wealth or money behind them. Not a single one of them is still living that like hustle grit lifestyle. Why I'm pointing this out is because I hear from so many of you, right, who are artists, who are creatives, myself included, that like, I fucking love what I do. I love being an actor. I never feel more alive than when I am in a rehearsal room, when I am reading a new play, when I am like doing my craft, doing my art. I want to be doing this until I am dragged into the ground by the Grim Reaper himself. That is how I feel, okay? In order for that to be my reality, I had to discover what it took for me to be a cashed up creative, a not starving artist, in order to actually live that life. Because I know my ass, when I hit 50, I'm sorry, there is no more hustle, there is no more grit coming out of this girl, right? And so in order to create longevity for your art, like the best gift you could give to your art is the longevity of a career that can be sustainable until you're in your 80s, okay? So when we think about the starving artist trope, this was in the interview I just had with Rin and Josh. It's also on YouTube. Go listen to it. It's such a fantastic interview, and their baby girl Emma makes an appearance inside of the video. She's so freaking adorable. Go watch that video. Go listen to that podcast. Something we talked about was how the starving artist trope showed up for both of them, and something that Josh said was that like for the longest time he had this chip on his shoulder of like being a starving artist, like that's what made you real. Like that's what the artist did. Like we're all broke, we're in this together. Like we collectively love our art so much that we're willing to give up everything for it, right? That our art is true and raw and whatever. And what he was saying was like, ooh, that was just like kind of an ego thing, right? Of like, I want to have this chip on my shoulder because it makes me feel like I'm good, like I'm better. Hi, everyone. Also, if you're live and you have questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, please pop them in the chat. So having that chip on your shoulder kind of gives you this superiority complex as an artist. And I'm saying this because like I have gone through phases of this. We all have times in our life and seasons where like we have that ego thing, that superiority thing, those thoughts that make us feel like we're better, like we're good, like we're kind of like fooling ourselves into how good we actually are, right? And as an artist, especially a young artist, something that he said was like, yeah, I kind of had to tell myself I was really good and like have that chip on my shoulder because I didn't actually have the shit to back it up. And when we started working on their money together, right? And he was charging for his services, right? And raising his rates and things like that. And when I started charging for my art and getting paid as an artist, what it required of me was to actually be a great fucking artist, right? When you bring money into the picture, you have to walk your fucking walk. It brings up every worthiness wound, every single bit of self-trust, every single bit of like, am I good enough? Do I deserve to be paid? It brings up all of that stuff. And so what being a starving artist does, what being broke as an artist, an actor, a creative does, is it removes that standard. Right? It lets you kind of lean into, I'm broke and I don't get paid for my work. Like they don't understand, like this art is so good. But like if people aren't paying for your art, there's a reason for it, right? And that can be a really terrifying question to ask yourself. If people aren't buying your services, if people aren't giving you money for the things that you're providing and putting out there, there's a reason for it. Now, I also want to be very clear that there's a lot of fucked up shit in this world when it comes to how capitalism works, how the arts are valued monetarily, how our industries work, like with all of the corporations and the stuff going on behind the scenes. This is not to say that that stuff isn't at play, right? That we are actively being like squashed by how our economy is running, how this country is running. And there is personal responsibility, right? And there are questions you can ask yourself of like, why am I not being hired as a creative? Or why do I find safety in being a broke artist, in being part of this starving artist club? And it's really interesting what comes up when you ask yourself, what am I afraid of? When it comes to making more money, to having more money. I had a client who I was having this exact conversation with where she was saying like we got to the core of why she was afraid to make more money, why she hasn't even allowed herself to think that she could make like $90,000 to over $100,000 a year as an artist, as a creative. And she said, I'm afraid that if I make more money, that if I have more money, that I'm going to lose my fire to create, that my back's no longer going to be against the wall and I'm going to get lazy and I'm going to get complacent. I'm not going to self-tape. I'm just going to be like enjoying my money and enjoying my life. And I'm no longer going to have the desire to be an artist. And I'm like, interesting. Your art then isn't that compelling if it goes away when you make a bunch of money. If you are an artist at heart, you need to trust that fire, that desire, that flame, that there is literally nothing that could happen in your life, right? Nothing that could come into your life that could burn out that flame. I literally created a 6-figure business for my art, and my ass is still out 7 a.m. standing in line for these EPAs out here in New York City. I am good. My sweet artistic career has made me maybe $1,000 in the past 2 years, and I am still out there hustling for her, grinding for her, because I love the fuck out of what I do. There is nothing that could damper that flame. There is no amount of money that could damper that. You know what money could do? Money actually makes it easier for me to fuel that flame. Money gives me gasoline for that fucking fire, right? That is what allows me to like possibly take time off from coaching in order to do a contract when that comes along. It allows me to invest in coaches and courses and get new headshots. Like it allows me to do all of that so that I book more, so that my artistic career can thrive. So if you're afraid that more money is going to decrease your fire for your art, let's try it, right? There's no harm in running a little experiment with yourself. I want you to have the thought of like, okay, let me go have a lot of fucking money, get financial wellness, make more, save more, get 3 months ahead on bills, hone my financial skills, all of that. Let me go make that a reality and let me see what happens with my creativity and with my art. And the great news is, if you have completely lost your drive for your art, completely lost your drive for your creativity, and you're really sad about that, and you liked when your back was up against the wall and you enjoyed having no money and having a fuel for your art, you could just stop making more money. It is so easy to become a starving artist again. It is so easy to spend all your money and not make any more. So if you want to go backwards, if you want to go back to your starving artist life, you always have that option. So if your brain is afraid of that, tell yourself you're just doing an experiment. I'm going to give you a little spoiler. Once you have financial wellness and you're making more and your bank accounts are stacked, you're not going to want to go back to the way it was. And your fuel for your art is just going to get more, right? It's just going to be fueled, okay? Because again, you're going to be able to pour more gasoline on that fire with more money. And if for some reason your fire, your desire for your artistic life went away, one of two things has happened. One, you actually realize you have other desires in your life. I want you to know that it's okay for your creativity and your artistic desires to look different than they did when you were in college getting your BFA. Like, 19-year-old Brooke should not be making decisions for 29-year-old Brooke, right? Like, I'm going to acknowledge that difference right there. So if for some reason your desires in college when you were getting your BFA are totally different than your desires now, that's okay. Let's actually allow you to acknowledge that your desires have shifted. Or two, you're going to be recovering. Like, your body and your nervous system is just going to be in a recovery phase of like, oh my gosh, I have money now. Oh my gosh, like I can enjoy my life. I can be here. Like, you might just be in a season of, I think about it as like a pendulum swinging, right? Like when you release one of those crystals. Can you visualize what I'm doing with my hands here, right? So when you've been living in starving artist for so long, you've been living in that energy, when you swing all the way to the other side, when you let it go and you hone your financial wellness, you stack your bank accounts, you get 3 months ahead on bills, you make more money, so you have more wiggle room, you're all the way on this end, right? And what happens is like, you might be all the way on this end for a little bit because of how much you swung, right? But at some point, you're gonna even out, right? That desire is gonna slowly start coming back for you once you've pulled yourself out of fight or flight, once you've allowed yourself to enjoy, like, let's use an eating example, right? This is like soft trigger warning for anyone who has some eating thoughts, some stuff that they wanna not listen to this for, just a little warning. So when you're recovering from an eating disorder, right? Like when you have been dieting or starving or not fueling yourself for so long, and finally you allow yourself to eat, right? Whether you're intuitive eating or you've just released all of the rules and restrictions that you had been giving yourself for so long, you might swing all the way to the other end where you are finally allowing yourself to like eat and enjoy and not have rules and indulge. Amazing. You might swing all the way on that end for a little bit. Then at some point when you've like healed that, right? When you no longer feel tied to these rules and tied to this restriction, you're going to swing back towards the middle. You're going to start to even out to where you actually want to live and want to be. The same with your money and the same with your artistic life. Do you trust your creativity enough to never leave you? And do you love your creativity enough to give it what it needs to stay with you until your late 80s? Until your 90s? Because if you love your creativity enough, that's the gift you're gonna give it. Because I don't want you to be like pinching pennies, scraping by when all you wanna do is enjoy the last 20 years of your life, right? When you just wanna vibe on this earth, creating art, giving back, creating projects that might not be like funded, right, by big industry, by big corporations, where you're having to self-fund it because you want this story or this piece of art out in the world. That's the gift that you give yourself in the future. Cashed up creatives are creatives that stay in this industry for the long term. Starving artists peter off, right? Very early. I feel like you see a huge wave of artists burn out and give up their art around their 30s when they realize starving artist life is not for them. But there's another option. You don't have to choose between artistic life and living a luxurious lifestyle. You get to have both. It just means you have to be a cashed up creative, not a starving artist. You can shift and still have a creative career. This is like long game energy. Okay. Are you in this for the long game? I feel like I hear that term thrown out all the time when it comes to like acting coaches and colleges. It's like, play the long game, right? Like plant seeds with casting offices, right? Like you're not in it to like book every single job you audition for. You're planting seeds, you're growing your garden, like your career is going to ebb and flow and all of that stuff. It's the long game. But what we also need to acknowledge is that a long game requires financial backing, requires money skills, requires being ahead on bills, requires having money in savings, requires understanding how money works, because money is how you stay in this business and also survive in this life that you're moving forward in, right? So cashed up creatives have way more longevity than starving artists. And why I am so fucking passionate about this is because I love artists. I love creatives. You all are the lifeblood of this earth. I was at a jazz club the other night. I went to Smalls, for those of you who live in New York and know that jazz club. And I was watching this group of brilliant jazz musicians. And I was like, these people, and watching the audience just like enjoy and like take a load off, right? And then I'm thinking about all the other creatives and artists that are the reason we live. Literally the reason that we keep going is because of that creativity. Every kind of creativity, right? Like the beautiful shit in this life, it's all creatives, right? And I know all of that content was coming out during 2020 of like, art is literally what got us through the pandemic. It's what brought us through that dark age, okay? And so the fact that that is what artists and creatives bring into this world, we need you. Oh my God, we need you. I need you to have longevity. I need you to stay in this world because I want your art. I want your creativity in this world, okay? I want my creativity in this world. I think about when I start to feel, you know, because I ebb and flow with my creativity as an actor and my like drive for this work. It's definitely gotten a lot better, like the further away I've gotten from college. But the thought that I keep having is like, there's a desire in me for a reason. Like I don't want to be an actor for, it would be fucking crazy if I wanted to be an actor for any other reason besides I love it. And when I think about why that desire is in me, I just keep thinking about like, there are stories that I am meant to be here to tell, right? And I have no idea when those stories are gonna come. I'm getting emotional. God, I have no idea when those stories are coming, but it is my job to stay in this career and this path as long as I need to in order to be here. When those stories come along, I think about just all of the brilliant artists and actors specifically who stayed in this business into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? In their age. And the fact that they stayed in this career long enough gave us their brilliant performances. And I think about like, what if they had not? Like, what if they had dropped out because they got burnt out, because they were tired, because they didn't want to anymore? This is also, I want to be very clear that this is not a shame of anyone who has made a different decision, right? Of like, this isn't for me. That's totally different than burning out and like ignoring the fire that's in you of like, I know I'm meant to do this, but you don't see another way, versus being a starving artist, right? Which is why I'm so passionate about saying like, if you desire to be on this career path, there is a way to live a sustainable life. And so for me, what keeps me continuing forward, what keeps me going to these EPAs, right? What keeps me auditioning, what keeps me playing with new material and like reading plays all the time, not just because I enjoy it, but what created this business, right, is the fact that I knew I needed to create a life that kept me in this career, that kept me in my art. Because at some point, there is no other reason for this whack-ass actor desire to be in me besides the fact that there are stories I'm meant to tell, right? That only my brain, my body, my mouth can tell. I have no idea what those are going to be. I have no idea the rooms I'm going to be in. I have no idea the types of plays that are going to be put across my plate, but I know that there are ones that are meant for me. And so my job is to stay, right? And my staying power, right, comes from my money, comes from my financial wellness. And so the money, like, it's not just about like accumulating as much as possible, getting as much in my bank account as possible. Like, that's just a vanity metric. The reason that I became a cashed up creative was a love letter to my art. Okay. My money, my financial wellness is a love letter to my art. I freaking love my creative life so much that I'm willing to create a whole ass business in order to give me that longevity, that I was willing to make $0 in my acting career for so many years in order to stay in this business, right? Like, I have put so much effort into figuring out how to make this a sustainable lifestyle as a love letter to my art. I want you to be drinking margaritas on an outdoor patio without worrying about accumulating debt, without worrying about when your next paycheck is going to come, without worrying about like, are your residuals going to pay for your rent next month? I want you to be able to drink your margaritas in peace, because that's what summer is for. That's what I know everyone's saying, like, this summer's got 2016 summer energy, right? Or 2014 energy. What was the really great summer? One of those years, whatever that summer was, this summer has that energy. So I want you to be able to enjoy the fuck out of your summer, knowing that this is the last summer ever. You may even have like a whisper of starving artist energy, that moving forward every single summer from this point on, you are not only going to be enjoying your summer months, but you are also going to be stacking your savings, investing in retirement, paying off debt, and doing so with ease in less than 1 hour a month. You get to have both. This is the last summer ever that you're not going to be doing both. I cannot wait to get you cashed up, to have a blast with you this summer. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.